I'm going to show you how to make rock buns. First ingredient is self-raising flour, and preferably that needs to be sieved into your mixing bowl. What that will do is get rid of any lumps that are in the flour and aerate the mixture, in other words help it to rise. Next ingredient then is going to be the fats that you're going to use. Now this could be butter or it could be a hard margarine. Either of those two is fine. And once it actually gets into the bowl, you're then going to use a round bladed knife or a table knife, not a sharp knife, and you're going to cut your butter up into small pieces. Now the reason why we're making this recipe is to show you how to use the rubbing in method. So first of all, cut that fat against the size of the bowl until it's relatively small. You can do this if you want on a plate and then toss it into the flour. I just prefer not to make too much more mess. Okay, so you'll see it's a little bit cloudy at first because that's just the flour. And then what you're aiming to do is to use your fingertips to rub the fat over the flour. Eventually this cloud of flour will disappear, don't worry. So each time you rub, you drop. So you rub it and drop it, rub it and drop it. And you keep doing that. And if you find any big lumps of butter or margarine in there, just break them up with your fingertips. Now the reason why you're using your fingertips, not the palms of your hands, is that our aim is to coat the flour particles with the fat. We don't want to make a dough. We want to end up with something that looks like breadcrumbs. And we want our mixture to be nice separate grains. So what we're doing is we're coating the flour particles with the butter or with the margarine. And that will mean that they don't absorb quite so much liquid during the process, and you'll end up with a nice short tender rock bun. Now the method I'm showing you, the rubbing in method, is very versatile, and you'll see it in lots of different recipes. You'll see it in short crust pastry, you will see it in lots of biscuits, you'll see it in recipes like shortbread. So once you've mastered it, it's one of those things that you can go on to adapt. Also in crumble. So I have my flour and fat. In a moment I'm going to put my sugar in. Okay. At that point I've basically got crumble. Okay. I'm going to bind mine together with the egg, and that will make it into a dough. And that can be shaped in different ways. You can make something called fruity buns, which have just got jam in, or you can make the rock buns, you can make raspberry buns. There's all sorts of recipes that you can make. Okay, now I think I'm nearly there. You can see that my butter has been spread out much more now, but I'm still not quite sure. So what I need to do is to stop, hold my bowl, shake it on the surface, and then if there are any big lumps left, they will come to the surface. So I'm going to pop those in. Okay, I'm quite satisfied with that now. So the next stage then is going to be adding the flavourings to this. Now you have the option of putting in spices if you wish. Things like cinnamon are always very popular. I'm going to add probably about 1/4 teaspoon of that actually, because I've also got some mixed spice. Now this is the one that you traditionally think of with the flavour of hot cross buns or the flavour of Christmas, and I particularly like this, so I'm going to add in a whole 1/2 teaspoon. There's no need at all to add any spices if you haven't got any, so don't worry about that, it won't spoil them in any way. Next stage is going to be my sugar and then my dried fruits. I'll just stir that around a moment and you can see the colour change. Okay, because I have a range of fruits, I'm going to use some chopped up dried apricots, some sultanas, and because I have some left over from Christmas, some dried cranberries. Now again, there's absolutely no need to have that much in variation. Just some everyday mixed dried fruits or some sultanas or some raisins, absolutely fine. I'm just going to mix those through. Okay, The next stage then is the egg. So I need to break my egg. I'm just going to break it into my small bowl. And then I'm just going to use the same knife to avoid having too much washing up. And I'm just going to break that up. I'm going to make a bit of a well in the centre. I'm going to pour in all of my egg. Now I'm going to try and bind this together into a ball of dough. That's what I'm aiming to do. So it's going to take a little bit of work to do that. Now, because these fruits that I've got in here are naturally sweet, I've been able to reduce my sugar a little bit to make up for the fact that my fruits are very sweet. But nobody will ever know any different. It's just such a tiny little variation. Okay, you can see it's beginning to stick. Not 100% convinced it's going to stick together with my hand. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of water in this eggy bowl, and I might need to add that in a second. So I'm just going to have that ready before I put my hand in and start getting very messy. So I want to hold the bowl carefully and then using my hand see if I can get this all to stick together. If I really can't and it's crumbly, and I think you can probably agree that mine's still fairly crumbly, then I'm going to add that extra little bit of water. So it's not all of that by any means, it's just a little dribble. And I'm going to see if that will do the job. Almost there. Okay, we're nearly there now, because you can see I've nearly managed to get one great big ball of dough. And that's what I'm aiming to do. I'm aiming to pick up all those crumbs and leave nothing in my bowl because my mixture is all moist. The flour has been hydrated. There we go, that's what I'm after. Okay, next stage then is the baking tray and some baking parchment if you have some. If not, you'll need to grease your baking tray. And now what you're going to do is take even-sized pieces of the dough that look rocky, hence rock buns, okay, but they all need to be roughly the same size, because there's no point having some of them burnt and then other ones barely cooked. So in a moment I might just readjust the size of them depending on how I'm going quantity wise. I'm aiming to get at least 10, maybe 12, depending on how we're going. And also thinking about how many people are in your family. I actually think that was probably a bit big. You might want the exact number so that you've got 2 each or whatever in your family. Although obviously the cook always needs to have an extra one just to taste the goods. Okay, nearly there. I think actually I'm going to end up with 11. If I was worrying about getting 12, I could obviously just take a tiny bit off them all, but I actually think they're absolutely fine. So that's my 11 on the tray. Okay, what I'm going to do now is wash my hands and then I'm going to put them in the oven and I'm going to cook them for about 10 to 12 minutes. Now remember, when you're using the oven you need to have some oven gloves on. You need to bend down so that you can put sorry, you have to bend down so that you can put your food between the shelves, okay, without catching the hands or arms on the oven racks. Okay, it's important that you do that. So there they are in the oven on the middle rack. There are the rock buns out of the oven. Remember that the tray is very hot, so you must use oven gloves and you must put your tray onto something to protect the work surface, such as a chopping board. And there's the finished result.